they would extend their life, and they could go to 50 or 100 other worlds. And by the time that their contract being farmers was done off world and they'd come back, they could have lived as much as 1,500 years. And many of those returned and began an infrastructure in North America, South America, the Polynesians, that began to represent resistance-free Earth in the initial concepts. Because they were ancient beings returning with all the knowledge of farming and growing, and many of them learned megalithic building on the long journeys of doing that, so that they could, make an infrastructure where Earth could be free of all of the off-world organizations and governments.
Yeah, so we were sort of talking about like 750 AD.
Yeah.
Is this around that time, or this is well before it as well? Like that structure?
It would have been well before that. It would have been as much as 11 million years, but if you take into account time traveling, technically it's 54. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a common theme of like a representation of it all working up.
Right. Seed a bubble of reality, so that the seed may take 10,000 years to bud, and the second it's budded, anything that has the spiritual code can directly incarnate into that reality.
Yeah,
and this is where
it was
like
it's not just sharing life, it's in like organic life. It was the technology to maximize the potential in wherever that went. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they would make islands, and this is, some of the islands were spaceships, and was put on top of them, and they were simulated to look like tunnels, which was a reality experiment. But it was what was meant because it was going to be future time travel fallout shelters, and just places for people to hide and have incredibly powerful lives on Earth without the system guiding or telling them what to do, like a free spirit zone. And they were oftentimes try to be invaded and stuff like that, but they got enough friends and technology in the unseen world where they're always able to fight back somehow. And that's why they got resistance-free Earth.
And all amongst this was the incarnation grid being influenced as well.
Yes. And I didn't mention any of the undersea populations, so that's just the surface, because there were undersea populations that were just as genetically farmed as we are.
So like things like Poseidon and all that sort of thing are metaphors for those undersea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like the DC comics with Wonder Woman and stuff. They got Aquaman and things like that, which are sort of soft disclosure, I know.
Yeah.
In a general metaphor sense, but there's an underlying theme that this is
right. The metaphor directly is that Wonder Woman comes from an island that's invisible, because that's exactly what I just described in Polynesia. They made these invisible. Yeah, but literally.
It's like she's a priestess originally.
Yeah.
Like a very high level spiritual priestess that is a warrior as well, like with gifts that like martial arts sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is all mystery school stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you look at the mystery schools, the other thing that mystery schools didn't include is the continuation of this, is what was going on in the undersea world. So all right, so what's your topic you want to talk about?
Okay, I've been thinking about this sort of Archetype and Wonder Woman movies coming out. So there's like you've talked about Sacred Feminine Warrior, and I've got a friend who's a Green Jaguar clan from the Mayan era and stuff like that. And to me, like this movie Wonder Woman that's coming out, it seems like it's a mystery school sort of orientation, a bit like the feminine version of Batman Begins.
Okay,
So
I fully understand. I fully understand that. So, something we got to understand with comics in the 40s and 50s, it was secret agents versus secret societies and assassins. And in the 60s, it then turned from secret societies and secret agents and assassins to mutants and time travel. And then it switched to, because in the 70s, everyone, 60s and 70s, everyone started doing LSD. It turned into magic and secret societies again.
mm,
So comic books, for as much soft disclosure they have, their themes are still from 40 years ago
yeah,
and still influencing us to today. But that's what books do. That's what, stuff that's in our culture and our history do as it's passed on.
mm,
Now, Wonder Woman is to represent the Amazons, who have, I think they're called the Temple of Themyscira, which actually has some real meaning. I don't remember what it was. Let me look it up. And then this will set the stage. If it's a mystery school indoctrination, or if it's because in my view, the Amazons were real beings, but they were off-worlders who came here with the intention to conquer, quite literally conquer, a male-dominated culture. But they weren't here for the whole world. They were here because huge volumes of souls that would normally incarnate into their breeding rituals decided not to. And they got very mad. And what they discovered is there were other forced evolutionary groups like the Dracos and the Dickheads and the other ones that were around at that time had created, let's just say, a kerfuffle with spiritual technology that allowed men to be more dominant instead of being subservient to the Amazonian warrior feminine.
mm,
Because it was, I don't like to even use the word Amazon. We'll just call them sacred feminine warriors that had many planets under their belts, not just one, but many that they lived on. Now, there were men warriors, but it was the women who could talk to the planet
yes,
and convince the planet to lend energetic resources. And it was the men who were more the builders, though women were builders too. I mean, it's just, you had 65% of the main warrior defending population were the women because they had, from earlier lifetimes, better abilities to sense external forces influencing, spying, so on and so forth.
yes,
So I don't want to call them militarized, but eventually it led to that. But more like the female body as an instrument of detection had many more innate skills than the male of that DNA lineage timeline.
yes. Because the skin suit is technology. That's basically
Yes.
what the theme with you has been for a while. So very interesting. So it was, say the representation on Earth was a fractal of the whole. Is that a way to sort of look at it?
Yes.
What sort of era are you talking about as well? What, like, time-wise?
Well, there were female Amazonian equivalent warriors here 12 to 18 million years ago and further back in time via time travel, but that's two separate races of those that were
Sure.
doing that.
Sure.
So if we could say the Atlantean times, Atlantis had a giant spaceport, so thousands of different species could come and go. And at that time, there were good guys running the port. And the bad guys, yeah, they were like a criminal mafia with inside, but they still didn't have complete and total domination. It was quite some time before they got that.
Sure. Well, I'll step back from that, and I'll just say why I brought this topic up, because from me in this time, I've sort of seen a pattern, and it's the movies like Divergent and Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
There's sort of this female strong character that has a lot of heart and does the right thing, and I'm just wondering if there's anything related to that, and say the Wonder Woman movie, which I've got no doubt is going to trigger a lot of people, especially the women, like of the potential of a character that hasn't been there in the society, like a strong, woman that is very focused and grounded and orientated, say from heart space, like with the earth as an ally. It seems like there's
I get what you're saying.
There's something bubbling up, and I'm interested in your perspectives with that.
Because the way the sacred feminine has gone through its masterful domination and separation and dividing of its own love, we have to go back to an era where that existed. Now, what's coming out in our society is when you limit a species or a race or a sex so much, inevitably the best comes out of the select few who are ready to embrace the best. And for me, individually, as an observer and a reader, books like Mockingjay and stuff like that, where it's got the powerful female character, it's still set in a dystopian society where the world was destroyed. And all of them are set like that way. There's no Earth is One and Everyone's Beautiful movies out there. You notice that?
Yeah, true.
Right. It's everyone's been defeated.
Yes.
There's always been a defeation. And then in that defeat, you have a powerful woman stepping forward. Well, you have that all throughout history. Boudica was an example of a powerful female warrior in English history who stepped forward, and she was a Celt or something like that. I forgot what she was. But she defeated the British armies left and right, slaughtered them. So you've got many female warriors, generals that are in history, but ultimately male history hasn't recorded them.
Sure.
So you've got this internal race amnesia of, man, women should be really powerful, but we never see it. It was nothing in history. And then when something like a movie like comes out like Wonder Woman, it triggers people at the race memory level or race amnesia level.
I guess the focus, I wanted to get your perception of that overall thing, but then to me, just seeing the shorts, we're talking on May the 17th, my time, which is before the movie's been released, but from the shorts that I've seen, it looks like a very mystery school orientated sort of...
Well, it's because Wonder Woman is a mystery school kind of comic book. If you look at the base, I looked up the Temple of Themyscira. It's actually something that was created by DC Comics. It's a totally made up name, but it has made its way all throughout colloquial book history. A lot of people use that name because it's the place that the Amazons came from, an island that is invisible. So you could call that, access to Hollow Earth. And when Wonder Woman was created, the majority of those comic writers went from straight-laced tie wearers to using LSD, smoking weed. Yeah. And then you look Wonder Woman as a TV series in the 70s with, what's her name, Linda Hamilton?
Yes.
She was a gorgeous woman, built, muscular, but that didn't really exist then.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today, and it felt like, say, the Batman series, the 3 series like Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. To me, it's all about, I see the bat as a totem relative to shamanism, and that whole path that he went through was all about, his development as a shaman, sure, it was like glitzy and, you know, military and like fighting
Well,
and stuff like that. It's a bit, that concept to me is like that being that watches the tribe, so to speak, you know, on a grand scale, but it's
all
that
right,
sort of
so
metaphor.
if you were to look at the Batman standard comic book of history, even though comic books don't have a linear history because they, you know, have so many alternate expressions,
Mm, mm,
Batman was a detective, and it wasn't until Ra's al Ghul came to his city that he understood there was a secret society, and then he infiltrated it as a detective.
mm.
And you then, you know, 40 something years later, have a movie industry that's all about secret societies, UFOs, and aliens, and it's very easy to use the secret society concept.
Sure.
So Batman was never actually in secret societies until, you know, 40, 30 years of his comics.
Mm,
He
mm,
was a detective. That was what he was billed as.
mm.
And then Dark Knight Rises and all that, that didn't come around until the 90s, I believe, when they allowed Seth MacFarlane, the former Spider-Man writer,
Okay.
Spider-Man person draw, who mastered negative ink space. You know, he really showed as a comic book writer you could use negative space to tell just as much story.
Mm, mm. Yeah.
So when we use comic book as a reference, we got to understand their history.
Mm,
And I know that this type of question you're trying to ask, but here now in our world, for as much illusionary power to real power that secret societies have, do they run the government? Good portions of it. Do they have their abuse rings? Absolutely. They've had them for centuries.
mm,
But before there was that secret society, there was somebody else that wasn't the secret society and openly had abuse rings.
mm,
Remember, rape laws and murder laws really didn't get passed in the United States till the 1930s and 40s.
mm, mm.
So, you know, we have only been civilized as the way we know it for less than 90 years.
Yeah, yeah. Like we did that recording series, and you said that basically humanity was living on a point 0.2 blood alcohol limit until the
Yeah,
mid 17th century. Was it
right.
that?
Yep.
Like, it's hard to comprehend
Now,
that these days.
hard to comprehend that. Basically, from let's just say Europe was like that. Now, the Andean and South American societies had fresh water and understood how to build cities.
Mm,
So they didn't have, they had alcohol, but it wasn't used the same way as we did.
mm.
They used psychedelics.
Yes.
Okay? So that's what, you know, put the knicker up the Mayans' asshole to start, you know, cutting hearts out and sacrificing them.
Mhm. Mm,
You know, when you born on, you know, your mom's on psychedelics, your entire birth, you get born and, you know, your nipple milk's mixed with psychedelics. You never really know the difference.
yeah.
All the
Yeah.
way up until you're 20, and then you're given a massive dose.
So I guess you know the question I was leaning towards, and I'll just say this: it was,
Yep.
is there a purpose behind the release of these sort of themes to actually trigger a lot for the benefit, to remind people of who they are on the soul sort of level? In
When it comes to movies, there is, but it is not intentional.
Sure.
It is unseen. It has massive unseen effects because of the disempowerment to the feminine. But it will also be very empowering for men too, who will get, you know, the emotional connection to the powerful woman and look at their meek woman around them who, you know, because, you know, that's the way men perceive women, powerful or meek.
Yes.
Okay? And then you have, you know, men in business who are powerful, and you have a powerful woman coming in. So yes, it will have deep, long-lasting, you know, things, but on an unseen level, yes. But as an intentionality of release by the director, no.
Mm.
other than the fact that, whoever plays Wonder Woman has a spiritual contract to do that, to go through the unseen world change. And Gal Gadot is her name, and she's a gorgeous woman. And
Yeah.
guess what? She's Persian. Okay?
I know she was in the Israeli military because she was from that region.
Well, they all have to be in the Israeli military. They don't get a choice.
No, I know. But yeah, it's like she's a very interesting character, that's for sure. She's been in a lot of movies and stuff.
Gorgeous woman too.
Mm.
And I've watched her career from, being on, CSI and other crime shows and movies and bit parts here and there. And I remember how I'm like, my God, that's an amazingly beautiful woman, an incredible actress too.
Yeah.
So it's the soul that has the staying, long-lasting power behind the imagery. And yes, the person that does the photography and the cinematics, they're just as important. Just as important.
Yeah, you've offered in places that certain personalities have been out there in news or in the media and stuff. They've had a lot of soul charisma.
Yep.
Yeah, do you want to explain that?
Okay, so soul charisma is knowingness, meaning you've lived lives with that person before. Now, that's not like mother, daughter, father, husband. It's you were always a aspect in the hierarchy that was observed by the different layers of the hierarchy. King, queen, knight, soldier, writer, historian, as you can think of it. But when there was no modern media like we have today, it was your local town crier, your local media, and then your nationality, like the Queen of England or this or a great general. And oftentimes, many powerful women of today's era were generals of the past, kings and queens of the past. Therefore, they have a huge recognition as a soul family level, and then at the race amnesia level, meaning I've seen this person before, I know this person, but can't identify where, and you just pawn it off to TV.
Yes.
And the soul uses that as part of its planning process. It's charisma. It's reach into the minds of forgetfulness.
Yes. Yeah, it's the 1 + 1 = 5. There's something that doesn't add up here.
That's right.
Yeah. So I guess I was wanting to focus on that theme of the Wonder Woman stuff. You've done your mystery school recording in the past, which is a product that you've got. Is there anything in that might be aligned to that?
No. That particular recording of Mystery Schools was about to give the functionality of Mystery Schools as time-traveling organizations that understand how to incarnate into the same lineage to achieve a form of immortality, to pass it on to their students. Then ultimately their students who could do once or twice wouldn't realize there's somebody that can pay the game 50 or 100 lifetimes into advance, which then leads into how the wizards were taken over by the technological process. Because, if the Mystery Schools is teaching you how to be reborn back into your family lineage, like you're going to be your granddaughter or your grandkid or your next born, if you die and the next baby that's born in the lineage, you're going to take it over because you know the magic and everyone in the family is indoctrinated into it, then you can be, lineage-based, immortality. So, and then the different lifestyles that were in lineage-based immortality. That's the other thing that Mystery Schools was about.
Okay. Yeah. I saw the link up with the internet era sort of recordings that were done. I don't think they're public at the moment, but they're out there. There was 4 hours of recording I did with Andrew with all the images and stuff, where the Cathars and the obelisks and all that were part of. So that's something to keep an eye out in the future. So
those will come out at the right time in the right place. It's just society has to be ready for certain subject matters, and both Andre and I are willing to personally research our these different subject matters. But as we go further and further and further deep, Well,
the reason why I dropped those sort of topics and themes and relationships to our conversation is that, say this is released at some point, Andrew, and I know this is an opportunity, the no time thing with you is it may be 2 or 3 years time since we've done the recording and someone might hear it and it's out there released. So we're just offering relationships to other themes that we've done. And if you're out there listening to it, if you're wanting to follow up and investigate further, that's the whole purpose of doing these theme videos and components and all that sort of stuff to engage the pattern recognition.
In the pattern recognition that you can begin to understand the multidimensional expressions that are there.
Yes. And the focus I've sort of had with Andrew is actually to identify core theme blocks, if you will, and have them which you can actually digest for the body, the cellular memory, so that you have an awareness of a component that will be like a dot to dot, where you can actually interlink the patterns of the reality and then have it in you as a foundation and not be reliant on anyone else. Like the whole theme with Andrew is actually to empower you to be like him, you know, not to be follower, you know.
I want everyone to be able to do what I do. That's why the course Living the Mystical Life Daily is out there, to get you on the mystical path so you can begin to read the Akashic Records in a similar way that I do. All the tools and the techniques are in the course, but it's a matter of the sacred discipline, engaging the sacred heart space, understanding how to work with your 7 previous generations and your 7 future generations as a meditative construct process. Until such a time, living the mystical life daily is as easy as breathing, eating, waving your hands, because you've reached a state of knowingness that the mystical is always there waiting for you to engage it.
Yes. And one thing I've done with you, mate, with your information is I've devoured it for the last few years. And then what's happened in me is I have those components with your information, and then I can feel the gap in between it. I sense it, and I'm not relying on you. It's sometimes I choose to perceive what I feel, and it's not always right. And then I might come back and hear your stuff, and it's like, I was just a bit off. I get it, and I just recalibrate myself for the next time. And that's the way I've sort of done my stuff, and that's why I've done my videos and the Conscious Explorer, sort of documentary series and stuff. It's to get allies up as fast as we can, So
something else to deal with the Wonder Woman sacred feminine immersion. Why now? The real reason is DC Comics lost it in the race between DC and Marvel, even though DC won the comic book era from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even into the 80s. And then as a company, they just couldn't negotiate with Hollywood, and Marvel figured out how to did it, and they put out their top best. And then, you'd put out 1 good Batman movie, 3 bad Batman movies, a reboot with a Batman that's okay. And, the rest of their stuff is mediocre at best.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't negotiate with Hollywood. They didn't figure it out.
Marvel got bought out by Disney as well. I forget when that...
but not until after Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, X-Men 1, 2, and 3, and a variety of others. I think it was only in 2010.
Yes.
Yeah, 2010.
But I get what you're saying. They established themselves.
Marvel Entertainment is still existing, even though it was bought out. They bought the rights and the intellectual property to create it as movies, and those people made a transition to the Disney side too, because they know the material. You just can't have brand new people come and reinterpret the material. You need the legacy. The original people that created it are still living, Stan Lee and Avi Arad.
Yes, yeah.
Right, they're still alive. The creators. You need that creative input.
Yeah. The Marvel movies are very interesting because they were there and they weren't as dominant as what they were, and then all of a sudden they just got it together. To me, like the whole writing, the scripts, the cast, the lighting and the effects, like the actual graphics of the effects, are so phenomenal. It's
Right.
they've gone from being in the pack to way beyond everything, and there's
Right.
this churning out of like Thors and stuff like that. They've got this.
And you go back to Spider-Man with Sam Raimi, the first Spider-Man with Sam Raimi. Now, what Marvel movies were out before that? Punisher. And I think maybe in the 90s they might have had a really bad Captain America with a plastic shield or something like that. But before that, DC had their Superman, their Batman, their this. But ultimately those movies didn't have reaching power.
The Iron Mans as well were there.
Right.
They're all Marvel. And then they've done the Avengers and stuff like that. So yeah.
So Daredevil, that was the other one. Elektra and Daredevil.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Which are now all a Netflix series.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting how the comic genre has been so successful in the film now.
And there's no reason it should have it should have always been successful. All movie industries are based off of storyboarding, which is just drawing the images of the scene so that the director gets it, so he can tell his camera crew how to make it look.
Yeah. Maybe I'll switch gears from that sort of stuff and just go back to something you said a bit earlier about the Wonder Woman sort of Amazonian. I forget the language you used, but that when you were saying it in the past and then the off-world aspects, are there aspects still out there to this day?
Yes.
Are they involved
Yeah.
with anything at all, or?
Yes. How deep down the rabbit hole do you really want to go? And then what context we got to understand
Yeah.
so they know why I say yes with great vigor behind my voice.
Well, one of the main themes that you talk about is the Galactic Ascension Machine, which is the Incarnation War that we're all. If you're listening to this, you're here as a resistance free Earth to be a part of this. You might be in your reality dealing with stuff, but on the soul level, you wouldn't be here listening to this with Andrew now if you weren't. So the audience might be listening to this.
For the Incarnation War to exist, you need a powerful set of women willing to give birth over many generations, with men who may not be love at that time, but are the seed that will combine technologies to allow a more powerful soul to come through.
Yes. Yeah.
So for the Incarnation War to exist, you need a huge, massive group of sacred feminine souls who will regularly take up the breeding process. And many of them will give birth to those children and never actually get to raise them. Or they raise them for the first few years before they're sent off to war or sent off to some other form of education that takes them down the war path or military education path.
Yeah. Yeah. So would one example of that class be in the internet sort of topic that we talked about with the obelisks and stuff? You talked about the rape of the Sabines.
Yep.
Going back to a couple of thousand years.
Powerful group, and you could even say that the Sabines had DNA relations to the Amazonians.
Yeah, they were the first group that the Roman Empire sort of took over. Was that
they were the leftovers of the Etruscan Empire, which was a strictly off-world organization that was influencing a surface population that had low technology, and they were trying to create their surface population that could have a lasting effect on the surface population and not have puppets from the subsurface population destroying it. But ultimately, the majority of the Etruscans, let's just say the ones that found a form of enlightenment, became off-world travelers and ultimately didn't come back. Similar to the Mayans.
So we're talking about the surface reality in that respect.
Right.
So
Surface reality is where breeding populations come to make manifestations so that those manifestations can leave this world as a commodity or an intelligent resource, a self-reproducing intelligent resource or self-reproducing commodity.
So just going back to the overall,
It's the key, self.
yeah, just going back to the overall theme that I was sort of bringing in about this off-world relationship to this oh, can I call them species, mate? Is that an accurate or race?
For this, it isn't one race and it isn't one species, but many of those races and species ultimately shared a common skin suit, which was human.
Okay.
2 arms, 2 legs, 2 breasts, 1 penis, so on and so forth.
Because why I suggest like the awareness of the surface and the off-world aspect, you in some of the recordings that I've done with you based on like haunting and ghosts and the airports and stuff, you've sort of there's a revealing of the hollow earth sort of subsurface species, and you've revealed to me there's 20,000 species there, so the volume of life there is hard to comprehend relative to the surface. So is there a relationship between them at all with this?
Yes. They are in a higher frequency, higher density when you go below the surface. And that's the way the reality has been set up. They also use a different frequency of time. It is a different density of time, too. They live much longer because we still function in linear time. Linear time was something that was created solely and specifically as part of the end of the paradoxical time travel wars. So you had beings that lived in the hollow earth that needed to put a small shard of themselves on the surface world to resolve linear time so that they could go into linear time and then breed with linear time beings to resolve their karma as a shard or a part of themselves. They're multidimensionally living beings. They're not limited to singular linear time.
So I'm just using this group as an example because you've sort of offered those concepts and those potentials as a common thread with a lot of the chats I've had with you now. And I don't mean to sort of push you into that path, but it's an opportunity to sort of just use it as an example to keep an eye out, because what you've said is that a lot of people on the surface are actually proxies for the factions under there, you know? So, yeah. So, in that obelisk sort of chat, we sort of talked about a 25,000 year period, and say that example of the rape of Sabines was only a couple thousand years ago. Is there a...
They've been around 800 or 700 BC, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Is there a aspect of, say, the 25,000 years of dead space and the resolution of, maybe resolution isn't the correct word, but Earth traveling in the galaxy relative to the galactic plane and stuff like that in this sort of resolution sort of period for the reality?
Yes. So the closer Earth would have come to the galactic central plane, the more potent and powerful souls would have gotten in the astral city lineup to be born, so that they could, I don't know how to put it, have more of a presence here. So the younger souls needed a longer frequency of linear time to make their next level of soul age based experience, meaning you need experiences to gain soul age. You don't need linear time.
Because I guess if I had done it or made it more complex, my perception is that there's a realigning of a lot of sort of things to bring remedy and resolve to this reality now. And my perception is there's a probably a um, good fraction of the audience that's listening to you, mate, that are all part of that theme, or they've had experiences in it. But there's
I would say everyone on this world has had experiences in the hollow earth, the astral world, and the surface world, and are some way, shape, and form entangled into the process. At around, let's just say, 16,000 years ago is when there was two separate incarnation grids masterfully created to separate the densities of time travelers, so that if you had a significant amount of multidimensional time in the hollow earth, you went strictly there, incarnated strictly there, and if you're mostly surface earth, you stayed strictly there, until such a time literally there were two separate grids, and those on the hollow earth could not pass to the surface earth anymore. It was very, very difficult. That was done on purpose. They wanted a separation. They wanted the surface to be the commodities and the subsurface to be the seeders of the commodities. That's based off of the Dracos and the other negatives that came in through forced evolutionary process to skew the law of one.
Is that in relation to the astral cities that got
Yes.
I'm not sure of the correct language with it, but they sort of like there was astral cities established, and then new ones came in that were sort of corrupted, and then they were given the fast track to the surface, so they were more desired to explore. Right? I guess that's from what I feel that you've sort of offered, because people wanted to get on the surface, but it was a trap. No.
It's not that they wanted to be on the surface. You got to realize that they were truly trying to separate the realities so that souls didn't have a choice to choose both.
Okay.
They wanted to create such a frequency on an astral, hollow, and surface earth that they were separate realities that you could not coexist on. But your DNA could be taken from the hollow earth and then transported to the surface earth in technology and then inseminated into women or men or whatever it is that you were doing at that time. And then you had exterior terrestrial beings, human and non-human, who came here, the demigod era, where they tried to directly breed with human beings. And this is why ultimately the hollow earth organizations, both positive and negative, wanted a complete and total separation of the surface because of the spiritual invasion process, because of all the stuff that was going around. They wanted to keep their hollow earth lineages pure. So whoever went to the hollow earth was under the ideology that they're trying to keep their lineages pure, and the souls that are coming into them, the highest frequency of those souls. So think of the surface as the AAA baseball league.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
But what ultimately happened is many souls who were separated from their close relatives and soul families began looking for ways to be coexisting in astral, surface, and hollow, which created resistance-free Earth, which created multiple time travel issues, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Because you can't keep people in love separated forever, no matter how hard forced evolution tries.
So just going back to, so I mentioned the road for the Sabines and that powerful feminine that sort of, like, obviously on the soul level knew it was going to be tough, but chose that from a contractual point of view to be here and to maintain it during that time.
Right. And they would have contractually agreed to millions of lifetimes that way from the very beginning.
Yeah. So it's...
But in those millions of lifetimes, there would still be a balance of good and bad.
Because it was like the awareness of the dense space and how tough it was going to be.
Correct.
You know, yeah. That was because time is only sort of an invention that we're in, that we're governed by, that isn't the case on the soul level and the incarnation purpose and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, like it have a lot of those that sort of chose that path still managed to maintain themselves despite the challenge of the experience. Do you want me to word that in?
I don't know about maintaining themselves. The ones that were able to truly maintain themselves didn't stay on the surface long.
Okay.
They left to go extraterrestrial worlds or hollow, or moved on in density.
I'll rephrase the question because I know what I did. It was very broad, but say the perception of the reality would have been very challenging for say the last 16,000 years or whatever. You've sort of
For the last 30 million years, it was very challenging.
30 million years, okay.
Yes.
So say the choice to be on the surface amongst it all, have a lot of those managed to maintain themselves here now, or they've...
No, they have not done well maintaining themselves.
So have a lot of those beings being lost to the universe, or they're still out there somewhere, or they got soul shards sort of trapped, or...
Lost isn't the right word. Trapped isn't the right word. Confused, because linear time began skewing each individual birth and death that had a life review based in linear time, that was re-exposing the I am to nonlinear time, multidimensional functioning. And over a span of 30 million years, we're using linear time as the form of life review. There began a soul-based confusion, but then again, that's how forced evolution works. It's trying to create a soul-based confusion, so the stream of light is diluted into its bigger purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. I'm sort of offering big sort of Monsabola sort of questions here, but I'm just trying to get a picture of, maybe this is a theme that we can use as a pattern of, obviously there's many sort of species and stuff like that have all tried and stuff, and we're the ones that are here now, and
we're the skin suit that is here now.
Sure.
On our surface world, are still 20, the DNA of 20,000 plus species. Okay?
Surface or subsurface?
DNA, right. Embedded into the human DNA and into the light body DNA.
So, say this movie that might actually be an opportunity to sort of see some self-disclosure and stuff like that. Is there any perception that you have that people could sort of engage it and view it and stuff like that to see potentials that they didn't realize that were here and stuff like that, or might resonate with them sort of thing?
Based on the movie?
Yeah, I guess it's a concept that is a bit different than what's out there before. So,
let me think. So when they go to observe the movie, you obviously will have the beauty of the actress, the countenance of the male love that the actress has, because that's going to be incorporated into the story, because Wonder Woman always had a man by her side, who was actually a pig in most of the comic books, because men were pigs in the 40s, 50s, and 60s to women.
Yeah.
Chauvinism. And she would break, not physically hurt him, but would be able to talk to his chauvinism and put him down and turn him around and make him not be a chauvinist in that moment. So you got to see the empowerment of the woman in the story, who's coming from a place of great power, great magic, coming into a world where there is no great power and magic. Everything is technology and science. And a woman. So, how do I put it? When you go to observe this movie, to watch this movie, try to have fun with it first so that you can see the subtleties of how it's affecting the unseen world of the person next to you who might be watching the movie with you, who might be a 20-year-old woman who's never seen a powerful woman in her life. Okay?
Yeah.
Or the 69-year-old man who's had, sexual fantasies about Wonder Woman since he's watched the comic book.
Yeah.
And now a new generation's coming through. And it's still affecting no matter what the fantasy is about. It still got him out of his chair, got him to the movie theater to re-engage that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Use your awareness and watch how people are influenced by it, both good and bad. And observing yourself. How has it influenced me?
Yeah, I've offered the concept of reality barometers.
Yeah.
So you can sort of go to those sort of locations and stuff and sense what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the sort of things that you were sort of offering to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm gonna have to. I'm sitting here like locking myself in, just riding with you, mate, because you were streaming pretty well. So. Yeah.
Power of Starcraft.
Yeah. You're in good form.
I'm at high APM mode right now.